welcome to this Habibian Association's webinar on pandemic and the future. So my name is Fazil Barucha. I'm a class of 1979. I am a lawyer by profession. I practice in the name of Barucha and Company based in Karachi, Pakistan. I sit on the boards of few of the NGOs, among which I'm in with Sina Health Trust, in which we are running primary healthcare clinics in about 30 localities in Karachi. And it's a state-of-the-art system there. And I'm representing HPSA right now. We are one of the youngest associations. I mean, the association is even younger than is the members, because it's been just less than 2 years that we have been established. And since then, we have been very active. And with this, I would like to introduce Mr. Saeed Allahwala, who is the vice chairman of the association, to say a few words about the association.
Thank you, Fazil Bhai. Fellow Habibians and guests, Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you to this very exciting webinar, Pandemic and the Path Forward. The world has turned topsy-turvy with the onslaught of the pandemic. People are badly affected in their family and social lives. Businesses are grappling with the economic fallout of the coronavirus pandemic. It's time that we shun the shock and learn to live in the new normal. Today is the second webinar on the post-COVID-19 events out of a series of webinars Habibian alumni plan to organize. I hope Habibian alumni platform will not only provide an opportunity to reconnect with each other, but also amplify the art of living in the new era. I want to thank all the guests here and the participants, and with my very best wishes, I invite you to enjoy today's event and continue to join us in the future webinars. Thank you very much. And thank you, Fazil Bhai.
This is basically the topic of today, the pandemic and the path forward. As I said, we are an alumni of the Habib Public School, and our president is Mr. Nazim Haji. I don't know whether he's available, is on this webinar today or not. And with this, I would like to, let's proceed further. As Mr. Saeed Allahwala has mentioned, that we have been doing a series of webinars on the pandemic, because we have all suffered, but we should all be thankful to Allah that we all survived. And that's why we are all here today and attending this webinar and seeing each other, mashallah. And now what we have been through, we all have been through, we have been discussing about things and ideas of how do we move forward with this thing, within this pandemic situation, and how do we look forward to the situations as they evolve. For this purpose, we have gathered about 3 speakers today. They all, mashallah, have got an illustrious careers, and I will be introducing each one of them one at a time. Just to say briefly, the first speaker is going to be Mr. Yunus Daga, who's a career civil servant. He has served both the provincial and the federal governments and retired recently as a secretary in the federal government. The second speaker is Mr. Harun Qasim, who is a successful businessman and a philanthropist, and he is, mashallah, running few successful business organizations, and he represents on the boards of various not-for-profit organizations. And last but not the least is Mrs. Annie Shahid, who is the current principal of Habib Public School. She's an educationist. She's heading a prestigious school, as I mentioned. And the program for the day would be that we'll be doing all the 3 presentations first, which will be followed by a Q&A. I must also mention that we have got 3 sponsors, 2 platinum premium sponsors, which are Hilton Pharma and Adco Laboratories. And then we have a platinum sponsor, which is MCOM. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. We will try to restrict ourselves to 30 minutes on this one. And so that's why I would request all of you to keep your systems on mute so that there is less disturbance for the speakers. And we would prefer that all the Q&A be given on the chat box instead of people raising the questions, so that at least we can control the timing. With this, let me introduce Mr. Yunus Daga. Mr. Yunus Daga is a class of 1977. He's a career civil servant, joined Pakistan Administrative Services in 1985. He possesses varied experiences in the field of energy, finance, commerce, trade, diplomacy, and public administration. He holds graduate and postgraduate degrees in business administrations, economics, law, and commerce. During his career spanning over 34 years, he successfully handled many challenging assignments, from being an administrator at various tiers in the provinces of Sindh, KPK, and Gilgit-Baltistan to project director in mega projects. As Secretary Coal and Energy and Secretary Investment Government of Sindh, and later on as Federal Secretary Water and Power, he played pivotal role in bringing investment to Thar Coalfield, Wind Corridor, and other areas which help overcome power shortages. During his tenure as Secretary Commerce, exports registered a growth of 14% in 2017 to 2018, an exception in the recent past. He remained Finance Secretary from March 2019 and opted out for early retirement in October 2019. He has, mashallah, 4 children, 2 daughters and 2 sons. So it's over to you, Yunus, now.
Thank you, Fadil, and thank you, Mr. Lawala. I'll try to be as brief as possible, and I must introduce myself that rather than calling myself an economist, I'm just a student of economics. So I'll be sharing this screen now, and I hope it is visible to all the participants. So when we talk of our economy and the conditions that the Pakistan economy has currently been facing, and also what we are expecting or we can expect after the COVID is over, and how we can make improvement in our expectations. Here is what Pakistan has been going through. We unfortunately were on a recession in mode during the IMF program, and due to very high and sudden increase in interest rates, a very abrupt devaluation of rupee, the inflation and the poverty and unemployment which fell into, and our industrial and services sector already were facing negative growth. So, but we had a good thing in the sense that we got the oil prices going down, the machinery imports after CPAC were going down. Coupled with devaluation, the imports were suppressed, and the problem of current account deficit, which we were trying to correct through the IMF program, so that was going under control. But due to the recession in the economy, the low growth, when the COVID hit the international scene, Pakistan was one of the least fortified or strengthened economy to handle it. So with the lockdowns, negative economic growth, we were further hit by more unemployment and greater poverty. And the exports also went down with the current account deficit. This is a screen that I would like to stay for a while. Now, this is what we have been through, the world has been through. 2020 is bad for the entire globe, so we can't expect anything better. But 2021 is what I would like all of us to focus on. That these are IMF projections. For the entire world, they say that it will be a negative growth, 2020, 4.9. But they say that the coming year, 2021, the world output will grow with a robust growth rate of 5.4. Now, these are all expectations, but when we come down to the emerging markets and developing economies, which the group that we belong, they said that the growth will be around 5.9%. Coming further to emerging and developing Asia, again, we claim to be part of this, 7.4% growth. But when it comes to Pakistan, the growth projection is only 1%. Now, this is where we should all be worried as Pakistanis, or the people who are looking towards Pakistan's economy, that while we are going through this negative growth, and the world is also going through this negative growth, when the world is going for expansion or growth in their economies, Pakistan is not expected to grow. Now, this is why Pakistan is running out of the scene. The next slide will try to capture the issues that are still facing our economy, and because these projections are coming from IMF. So if there is an institution which is very closely following our economy, that is IMF. Under the IMF program, they are looking into each and every aspect of our economy. So we cannot just brush aside these projections, and we have to see what are the elements of our economy which are expected, not only keeping us down this year, but are also expected to keep us down than the rest of the world in the coming years also. Now, one of the things that has hit Pakistan's economy was the interest rate. Interest rates, it is my position that these were very high, they're still very high. And what they hit mostly is because when we talk of economic growth, there are four areas or four components of a growth. The consumption that we make as common consumers. The second is the government expenditure when they go for big projects that stimulates the economy. And the third one is the investment that the investors bring into the economy. And the fourth is exports. So when these four are doing good, an economy grows rapidly. But we see that this interest rate has kept our budgetary space only limited to the banks. Most of our budgetary space is now going towards interest payments, and the government has lost that policy initiative on major development initiatives, which would provide that impetus to the economy. Now, when these things are missing, we need to have a policy which will then keep put the private sector into the driving seat. But we don't find any investment policy or industrial policy in the last 2 years that would have been rolled out, which would say the government is going to, like we had, say, power policy or LNG policy, or whatever investment policies we had in past, we do not find any major investment policy or industrial policy which would put focus on any selected areas which will provide the growth and employment to the economy. So whatever we find is that sometimes we see that we might be able to enhance exports in coming years, and maybe we find some loan rescheduling or some more loans from IMF and others. So apart from those external resources, we do not find any local or domestic initiatives coming from the policy side. So what policy interventions should we be looking into, or what the government of Pakistan can do for us? We recently found that the government was trying to boost the real estate sector. But real estate sector expansion depends on the disposable incomes. When the COVID has threatened incomes of all income sections, we should not expect that any impetus or any policy encouragement or government's intervention in real estate sector would quickly bring any good results. It is good for longer term, but not for current situation or in a couple of years. Budget 2021, as everybody said, it lacks imagination. Hafiz Pasha Saab said it's boring. So there's nothing in the budget which would give us any confidence that there is some way, because even in budget, they are expecting 2.3% growth, which is very modest and low. But IMF said that no, it is not 2.3 that they will be able to achieve, it will only be 1%. So now any policy intervention would require some imagination, some vision. It will not that if we expect that the COVID's repercussions or the jobs that will be lost or the businesses that will be lost due to COVID will come back by themselves without any government intervention or policy initiatives, it will be, too far-fetched, and we won't be able to go beyond, say, 1%. So loss of business opportunities and jobs needs to be compensated. So we have to work on our existing demands. Pakistan has a lot of untapped resources, and the demand, because many of our demands are met by imports. It has been our problem all the time, the trade deficit, the current account deficit. So let's build upon this weakness and see what we are importing and how we can have. This is an existing demand. You don't have to create any demand. You don't have to go for expansion. So if you import, substitution is the thing of the past, the thing of the future. We have always talked about the export um, uh, pushed growth or export-based growth. But this is the time now, and that's rightly so. I'm in favor of export push growth, but this is not the time for exports. We look toward for looking towards export when the international demand is coming down. We should look towards the local demand and go for import substitution for a change. There, the policy initiatives by the government and the industrial policy and the investment policy should be able to give quick results for industrial growth. And we should, and when the interest rates are coming down, the more and more investors would be looking towards such opportunities, and we should be able to get. So in my opinion, import substitution is the key for future. Secondly, what we have to do in the coming years is to keep the things manageable for the country and the taxpayer and the common man. We should not feel that the taxpayers have unlimited capacity to pay taxes, and the common man who's losing job every day, he is in a very bad shape, and we have to see that the inflation is covered, is controlled properly and forcefully. I would say the government should show its I would say that force and its initiative and its commitment to control. They've done a lot of things. The inquiries against cartels, sugar cartels are there, but then let's take it to the logical end. If the inquiry against the sugar cartel does not bring down the sugar rate, sugar prices, then it's no good for the common man. It's similarly the provincial administrations who are concerned with price control. They have to work very hard on this. They have to work on an emergency basis. The common man has to be protected from rising inflation, power cost rationalization, and I would say the interest rates have to be checked. As Mr. Hafiz Pasha very recently told us, that the reckless interest setting has costed the national exchequer, and by national exchequer we mean our taxpayers, 1,800 billion, 1,800 billion additional into the interest payments. So these kinds of reckless spending on interest or interest expenses leave the entire fiscal space out of the public domain, or it does not contribute towards growth. So these are the areas where the government has to come seriously with policy interventions and very committed and forceful, I would say, implementation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope I was within time. Fazil, आप mute पे हैं.
Sorry. My apologies. Just saying, thank you, Yunus, very much. You were right on time, very much. And I must say that good points you have covered. And I'm sure, there will be a lot of questions on that, because we do need a policy intervention vision, which you mentioned. Budget, you said, is not very exciting. And there should be a lot of debate on that. Let's keep that for the Q&A. And let's move on with this program right now. And just a couple of housekeeping. I would, as requested earlier as well, everybody please keep your devices on the mute and just let the speaker to speak. There is one Google form which is being a link which has been circulated to all the participants. If you are a Habibian, I urge you to please fill it out with your details in that. It's a very short form, just basic informations, some check of your memory as well, because it asks for your color of the house. So better remember that and fill that out, and we'll be grateful. Again, as I said, we'll be doing the Q&A towards the end of all the speakers. So just keep your questions and just put it on the chat, preferably on the chat, because we're going to be picking up questions from the chat. With that, I would like to introduce the next speaker, which is Mr. Harun Qasim. A brief introduction of Mr. Qasim is that he's from class of 1984. He spearheads the most dynamic pharma company of Pakistan, namely Farm Evo Private Limited, whose meteoric rise and rocketed journey to the club of top 20 companies among more than 700 companies in Pakistan landed him a stature of a leader and a mentor. Harun is also running Shield Corporation, an oral and a baby care company, as the managing director. He's the former chairman of Pakistan Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association. I must say, when he was the chairman, I as a lawyer had a lot of difficulties with these guys, but we faced that successfully, alhamdulillah. And it's an association of 250 plus members and only voice of pharmaceutical industry. His extensive corporate experience also includes his role as director of premier distributors and premier agencies, which are one of the largest distribution houses in Pakistan. He also sits at the board of English biscuit manufacturers Peak Friends brand, one of my favorite when I was a child, which reaps the benefits from his wisdom on how to amplify its business impact. Part of that profits might be my share as well. Harun has also served as the president of Mehman Profession Forum from the year 2011 to 2012, and also former honorary treasurer and deputy honorary chairman of Mehman Medical Institute and Hospital, a non-profit trust hospital serving Karachi. Harun's career is standing firmly on an educational foundation that includes Master of Business. So it's over to you, Harun, now.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Fadil. Thank you, Saeed Bhai. Thank you, Daga Saab, for just giving a very good overview of the economic situation. My role is to talk about the business and how things are looking in face of COVID. So basically, we all know this thing started in February and from China, and since then things have, as Saeed Bhai mentioned, the topsy-turvy. So I'll start with the quote here that one of the critical things in this that we have been trying to get across today, that we have to throw away the rule book, and we have never seen this kind of crisis in our lives. So basically, when you prepare for the disaster, you always have some SOP which we have to throw out, and we need to look at some new avenues how we can move forward. Basically, you can see this, the title slide, which is from the Economist magazine, which is 21st March 2020. And you can very clearly see that, how the world was shutting down, and basically the entire globe shut down in the grip of COVID 2019. And country after one another, they started shunning the society and the economic, and the governments tried to dole over the companies the trillions of dollars in aid and loan guarantees, which we don't know how things will work out in the future. So now basically the business of survival, and if you remember that Jack Ma of Alibaba said, if you pass 2020 as surviving, then you have made the year as a successful year. So we are in the middle of the year, which is like almost June finishing. We have 6 months more to go. We really don't know how the businesses will survive and what the future looks like. So it's a really tough world out there, and the companies who survive will definitely face a new normal, which we're going to talk about. How the business will survive in the long run. Okay, in the long run, the firms that survive will have to master a new environment as the crisis and the response to accelerate 3 trends. We have to adopt the new technologies. The supply chain will be freewheeling, and it will be a very challenging thing. And the world will talk about oligopolies, which will be well connected and which will have a worrying rise for the businesses. And the thing is that we'll have to say goodbye to the globalization, because nationalism will increase the possibility of international conflict. And you will see the nationalistic and self-sufficient area beckon. It won't be richer or safer, and we'll have to say goodbye to the greatest era of globalization, and worry, how the nationalism will take place going forward. Very interesting. I was just reading through the International Labor Organization data. So in the first half of 2020, we have lost significant hours, working hours than previously estimated. So highly uncertain recovery in the second half of the year will not be enough to go back to the pre-pandemic levels in the best scenario. So we are looking at about 14% drop in global working hours during the second quarter of 2020, which means about 400 million full-time jobs are being lost. Okay, this is an interesting chart which you can see, and I picked it up from one of our colleagues from Corporate Pakistan Group, Khurram Shehzad, whose company is Alpha Beta Core. You see, the question is, how do you see economic and business performance over the next 12 months? And you can see the very interesting data that businesses will further deteriorate about 39%, but economy will deteriorate by 58%. This is what the corporate CEOs of Pakistan feel. So the businesses will deteriorate by only 40%, but the economy will deteriorate by 58%. So there's still a positive thing that businesses will survive, but economy, despite being the economy going down by 58%. This slide, you will see that what impact the COVID-19 has on the business and industry. So you will see overwhelmingly that about 95% people feel that it is highly adverse effect on the business and industry the COVID-19 has felt. And only 5% of the people feel that it has positive impact on, and that may be because of some essentials which have benefited because of COVID-19. In this chart, you will see that majority of the sectors in the businesses like energy, manufacturing, trading, financial, technology, and pretty much everybody is talking about cost rationalization. So if you see energy is talking about 86% cost rationalization. So majority chunk is the industries or the sectors are talking about cost rationalization, which will be very, very challenging for the economy and for the businesses. Here I'm talking about the global Fortune 500 CEOs survey results, which came out in May 2020, which is interesting to see that what the global scenario is going to look like. And there are a few questions which probably I will highlight here for the benefit of the participants. And the first question on the left, you see when will the economic activity return to the level it was before the pandemic? And you see the majority of the people say it will be in 2022, which will be quarter1. So you see the red circle, which is the highest. So we'll have to wait about 1.5 years before we come back to the before the pandemic thing. The second question is when will at least 90% of your workforce will return to their usual workplace? And you can see that there's a majority people, 26% people think that they will never return to the usual workplace. So this is interesting. And another question they put out is, well, when will the business travel will return? And you can see that 51% think that the business travel will never come back to the level of pre-pandemic. Here I will pick up the middle of the chart. In January 2021, how do you expect your company's total employment to compare to in January 2020? So majority, which is 53%, think that there will be slightly less employment as compared to the January 2020. And the crisis will have the effect on the technological transformation, and we have all seen the technology advancement and people working from home and accepting the technology. So it's about 75% people think that the technology will take the first place in this pandemic. This is very interesting. This is a global survey of Fortune 500. You can see the result, the cut in compensation as a result of the crisis. So 50% people think that there will be cut. On the other hand, there are 48% people think that there will be no cut in the compensation in terms of the crisis. I'll skip this slide. So the single most important thing the crisis taught me, that was an open question, and this is a lot of learning from for all of us, that a business cannot wait for the transformation it knows it needs. Working home from work, we all know now, and the meaning of the word essential. And last but not least, the leadership and the value matter always, but especially in a crisis. I was just reading an article today of the Fortune 500, the Fortune magazine, and very interesting, the 4 things that they mentioned about how the business will survive this pandemic. And basically it talks about going to the basics and, you value the value systems of any corporate culture. So despite this pandemic, despite to be throwing out the rule books, these are the basic building blocks which we need to fulfill to survive the pandemic. People matter. We all know that the great asset is our team. We need to take care of our employees first and the foremost, make them safe and make them healthy, because they will run the company and they will make you the stronger team as always. Second, but not the least, is listen to your customers. We all have customers. The car, the automobile, the pharmaceuticals, the banking. So we really need to get closer to the customers and see what they really want in this pandemic situation. Plan, but stay flexible. We all know those who fail to plan actually plan to fail, and you have to have strategic plans in place and be sure to build in the flexibility to pivot with different scenarios and stay ahead of your businesses.
Arun, just 1 minute for you, please.
Okay. Look to the future, stay ahead of the game, looking at innovations that will enable remote operations, redundancies, and alternative working environments to keep your operations going in case of another crisis. This recently came out, actually this came out today, impact of COVID-19 on consumers in Pakistan. With big concern, the 80% of respondents feel are worried about COVID-19 as it continues to affect their lives. 54% think that they will face salary cuts and they will be laid off by the employers. And about 33% feel that will be changing their spending patterns. So this survey actually came out just the day before yesterday. Just end my presentation that you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, we need to build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So this is a disruptive innovation. Pandemic, COVID-19 has taught us to go into the technology, and this is the only way forward. And most importantly, this requires a different mindset. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arun. Very insightful talk. It is quite scary that you're saying goodbye to globalization and coming back to nationalization, which is in a way good, but all those years we spent developing the globalization concept and mantra, you're just throwing that off. And drop in working hours, you've been very much 14% in drop in working hours. And I would ask you a couple of questions maybe towards the end. And it's good that the tech will be taking over. That's what we've been seeing, because I must say in the legal profession, what we've been planning for the next decade, we achieved that in a couple of months' time. So with that, let me just once again remind all the Habibians for the Google form, which you all need to fill out. So if you haven't done that, perhaps now is the time to do that. And now will take to the last of the set of the speakers, last but not the least at all. We change gears here because what we are going to hear from the person is actually the person who's serving the real future. She is building our future torchbearers. So really excited to hear from her, which is Mrs. Annie Shahid, who is the principal of Habib Public School and Habib Public High School. She is an author, academic, educationist, entrepreneur, and social worker. And she is striving for good quality education, 21st century skills, and holistic developments of students and faculty. She has introduced a comprehensive continuing professional and professional CPPL environment for teaching and learning with a 5 C's strategy of communication, collaboration, creativity, confidence, and critical thinking. She has a master's in education and international development from UCL's Institute of Education, bachelor's in education from Karachi University, and bachelor in civil engineering from Amity University. She has been associated with the field of education for the past 28 years. She has been the program leader of Cambridge PDQs of Education Leadership and Teaching and Learning. She co-chaired at the TAKE conference on leadership and learning and also teaching and learning. She went to the UK to attend the prestigious BET Show 2019, where she researched cutting-edge digital resources to impact teaching and learning at the school. She has conducted several learning sessions at various education conferences, including CAIE conferences. She believes in working beyond borders and is working hard to impact education in Pakistan. She has served as a speaker, panelist, and moderator at various education seminars and conferences. She has authored articles on education and gender, both in local publications as well as international forums. Mrs. Shahzad is currently affiliated as an external mentor at IBA Karachi. She is also a member of the Board of Trustees at MALC Karachi Biennial Trust and Kurtapa School, Calpac Education. She is also a lead designer for Aini Shahzad Furniture Interiors. There have been much more on her CV as well. I had to edit that. So I hope I've done justice with her. So it's over to you, Mrs. Aini Shahzad. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know if Mr. Shahid was very happy or if Shahzad is very happy because you just made me Mrs. Aini Shahid in the beginning, but it's back to Shahzad. So it's a pleasure being here. And so what I'm going to speak about is very interesting because it impacts life. Education is about students and about how you impact how they are currently and how they are going to, what they're going to grow up to be. Now, for a second, I would like everybody to go back to the school days and what memories do you have? So when you close your eyes or go back in the past, you will always remember, socializing with your friends, being together on the school ground, in your classes, in the pool, on the field. Now imagine what's happening to students right now. Teaching and learning is continuing, but that element of being together, the pleasure that you get from one another's company is no longer there. And imagine how you feel right now when you are people. Now imagine for a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, what impact all of this is happening, is what impact this is creating on their lives. Now I would like you to focus also. Could you ever have imagined that
We are having
so
difficulty
we
hearing
have
from you.
entrance in grade 1? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, this is better. Thank you.
Okay.
Are you sharing any presentation, Miss Aini?
I will be, but in a bit.
Okay, sure.
Okay. And so if you can imagine that the new students are going to start classes not physically in contact with one another, but all online. So despite and what we've just heard about businesses and economies and all of that is, yes, very critical. But if you bring it down to the level of what makes it really a challenge is what I've just spoken about. Now, what also has happened is you can imagine that when online classes are taking place, the boundary between the school and the home is not there anymore. So when the teacher is teaching a class and there are 24 or 30 boys on the screen, and there are small homes or big homes or whatever, there are people pass by, boys are at home, the teachers are at home. So these are some of the challenges that you can imagine about the journey of Habib Public School. And before that, let me just share the screen with you. So all right. Before I get into the semantics of it and the details of it, let me just tell how Habib Public School has become a data-led education in a way that is being looked upon by other schools. And we are now sharing our OLM, we call it the online learning model, with other schools. So very importantly, the experts who spoke before me spoke about planning. So planning and strategic development is a necessity and very, very important to take this new model of education, one that would have come in 10 years' time. And what Harun Saab said, that what they've done in 2 months is perhaps that what would have been done in perhaps 10 years. So imagine for education, we've jumped like several leaps forward and done this. So very quickly, the online learning model started in March, very right after the COVID break. We started on the 8th of March. And you can imagine that lesson plans had to be reconfigured. Teacher teams had to get together, professional learning communities work together, and so on and so forth. How leadership was very important at this point, because it was a critical juncture. I mean, if the leaders were going to show any weakness, imagine what would have happened to the team. So teacher teams working together, leaders putting in all the time, digital preparedness, bringing the parents on board, bringing the students on board. So I'm quickly going to go through it. So just for you to gauge that, typically people think that education, what is it? It's just running a school and you're just teaching a couple of books and just creating imparting some content knowledge, but it is about skill building. It's about teaching resilience and grit and making sure that the students are getting the 21st century skills that are required. So this is the kind of planning that has to be in place. Now, I don't know if the Habibians on this page follow the school's website, but very soon after the pandemic, we put in a tab which was called COVID preparedness. And in it, there were several, it was a drop-down menu, and it was a go-to kind of repository for parents, for students, because the parents were feeling very uncomfortable about what was happening for the teachers and for the larger community. Now, let me take you through the journey. So I'm going to take you through the journey, then the specific actions that we have done and what schools should do, and then the challenges that pose in this journey. So there was no magic wand that we could wave to make the formidable task of remote teaching and learning easy and flawless for 2,300 students. Luckily, we did not need such a wand, as the school had started its digital journey in November 2018. And like I mentioned before, we went online on the 8th of March 2020. As a school principal, I focused on McKinsey's MECE principle, which is mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. So all the strategies that we were preparing had to be exclusive to impact a larger area, but they had to be collectively exhaustive to make it a robust program. And we followed the universal design for learning, which in simple words means engaging diverse students and representing skills and knowledge in different ways and giving them, the students, maximum opportunities for action and expression. Otherwise, this was not going to be successful. We had to be a learning organization. In Alvin Toffler's words, we had to learn, unlearn, and relearn, because what education was envisioned to be in the next 10 years, perhaps, was done in 2 months. For us and for all educational institutions, the learning curve had to be a steep one, because you could be exporting 10 million tons of something and it comes down to 5, it comes down to 3, you jump back to 8. But this is not a business. This is a school and real education. So we could not waste time. We could not sit back. We had to do something that would work. And the challenge was that, as my predecessors just mentioned, that the challenges were adaptive, emerging, and flexible goals that would match the requirement. Now, there are 3 things that which I call the building blocks that would really work. It was a supporting and enabling environment for school teachers and parents and students. There were concrete learning processes and practices, and then there was organizational learning. We had to learn as an organization, and that could only be triggered by effective leadership. So these 3 building blocks made it very easy for us to shift as an entirely online model of education during this pandemic. So from one side of the spectrum, we had to go to the other. So what did we do? Our academic, enrichment, sports teams, counseling services, all got together to create the virtual school. So in our scheduled timetable, Every day we have PE also. We have enrichment classes like cooking, coding, writers club, Bazme Adab, etc., etc. And we have counseling classes for both students and parents, so on and so forth. We also had to ensure that the students would be excited about this online learning, and they had to be good with the netiquette, which is the digital etiquette and digital citizenship. So can you imagine that young boys and young girls in other schools using the net, what kind of hazards it poses? So we have to be careful about all of that. And we also realized that the needs of the students were not only academic, but they were also personal, social, emotional, and behavioral development, because they were just stuck in their home. So every part of their being was being impacted.
Lady,
Now, what were the,
sorry to interrupt. Just last.
yeah. Yes.
I'm just saying that I'm giving you 1 minute, so
All right.
not over the time. So.
All right. So I would be very welcome to questions and answers, but one must understand that education that is typically considered to be a very sluggish kind of industry or organization, or suddenly had to really kind of up its game. And luckily speaking, we are in the midst of it. We are trying to do it and are helping other schools achieve that also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you very much. My apologies. I had to interrupt you.
No, not at all.
I didn't apologize to Harun because uske saath apna personal मामला है. So mashallah, good presentation. Really lots to learn what the school has been doing, leading the data, and it's a digital preparedness was there, and that you're following the universal design of leading. And it's a lot of credit goes to your faculty because it was a lot of organizational learning and then imparting to the students. And I was really pleased to learn that you are doing the counseling as well, which is the most important aspect, unfortunately, in this pandemic. So thank you. Thanks again to Yunus Dag, Mr. Yunus Daga, Mr. Harun Qasim, Mrs. Annie Shahzad. All three of you made really good presentations. And I'm sure all the participants have learned a lot from you, and they have a lot of questions. And but before we go to the questions, once again, I mean, being a member of the HPSSA, HPSAA, I've been hammered to keep on reminding you about the Google form, which you guys have to fill if you're a Habibian. And while you're doing that, we will run a very short promos of 3 of our sponsors of this event, 2 being Hilton Pharma, Atco Laboratories being the Platinum Premium sponsors, and MCOM being the Platinum sponsors. So we're going to be running very short videos. We won't take more than 2 minutes of your time once, so that you can gather your thoughts, and then we take the questions from you. I mean, I wanted to put up my own questions, but I think in the interest of time, I mean, I would like to put up the questions which I have received on the chat. So yeah, so let's see the videos now. Yeah, आवाज बंद है.
Second video.
share.
Okay, we are done with the videos of the three sponsors which we had. Let's now dig down into the questions which we have from the speakers. The first question I have for Mr. Yunus Daga. There are a couple of questions on this one. It says that you spoke about interest rate. Don't you think so that it was mainly IMF direction and there was nothing we could do? The second question, can I just go on for the second one as well, Yunus, for you, or do you want to answer the first one first?
Whatever you, मैं पहला का जवाब दे दूं?
Okay, sure.
Okay, on the interest rates, as we see that one thing is the interest rates and then taking loans on that interest rate. On both these issues, I had my own opinion and differences. That's why I got an early retirement during the IMF negotiations. I have a very clear feeling on that, when the inflation was 8% at the time when we were negotiating in June, there was no point in taking the interest rate. The inflation was 8%. There was no point taking the interest rate to 12.5%. That was, I think, huge cost to the national exchequer, and that destroyed the economy totally from that point onwards. I have very clear opinion on that. And then handling the government loans, the PIBs, as we know, the PIBs auctions, there have been a very, very reckless handling of that. And I have my own point of view on that. Maybe people feel that it was something they could not do about it. There is a lot that could have been done to keep the taxpayers' load to the minimum.
Thank you, Yunus. The second question, I mean, let me just put it to you as well, I mean, because that has been for you. This, you mentioned that the budget had no direction. That's correct. This is the questioner is saying. But under the given circumstances, COVID-19, do you think that we can achieve the budget without increasing the tax base and also without kicking start our economy? Regarding import substitution, how can we achieve that since ages we have not been able to make consistent policies, and above all, we have not been able to make our nation invest in made in Pakistan and be Pakistani and buy Pakistani products?
I 100% agree with what he has said in the end, that there have been a problem of policy consistency and policy capture. I would say that we have been following donor prescribed policies most of the time. Since 90s, we have been talking about the free market. We are talking about very flat investment policy. If you read our investment policy, there is no investment policy at all. There is no direction. There are no preferred sectors. There are no strategic sectors. In my opinion, the policy should have gone towards something which is our biggest problem, and that is the trade deficit. Your policy, we have been fed with the policy that there should be free market. We should not be protecting the local industry. True, the overprotection is bad, but at the same time, the country which is so bad in its trade deficit, there's a lot of areas that we have left since last so many years unattended, such as a very simple thing is most of our imports are on fuel, and we are still importing refined petroleum products. So we have not been able to do the simple refinery work in the country sufficient to for our economy, and we're still giving the value addition to say Far Eastern countries. Similar is the petrochemicals, all petrochemicals we are importing. We have not been able to put a single cracker of naphtha or other areas. So I feel that there is huge potential for a country like Pakistan. And I'm not at all disappointed in the current circumstances. If we have got good policy, we can do a lot of things. But the thing is that it should not be dictated by the donors. This policy should be what your country needs.
Let me take the liberty being the moderator. Yunus, let me just put another question, continuation of this. We talk about the policies, but unfortunately what happens is we keep on changing the policies. What can be done from on the national level so that at least the policies, irrespective of the governments, the policy stays the same, because that is the biggest problem with the investors. I mean, I deal with investors a lot, and then they shy away because of the changes in policies.
You're right. It's absolutely right. I mean, that is the problem. Or the questioner is also, he also alluded to that that has been our problem, that we have not been able to be consistent in our policies. For the time being, I would say that the 100 days plan of this government was to bring in an industrial policy. I have been working even after my retirement. Somehow things are going very slow. So we have to be very fast with our industrial policy, for our investment policy. And I am totally against very flat investment policies that we have in past. We should have a very well-directed investment policies, channelizing our investment towards the sectors that we badly need.
So we should basically have something written in stone that the policies don't change. Let me go to the next question, which is basically towards all the three speakers. Well, this is go to the next one. So now this question is to Mr. Harun Qasim. It says that, and to Mr. Yunus Daga as well. It says that whenever there is a disaster or we come across unknown situations, then there are some hidden opportunities also. As we go through the history and find California, Japan, and etc., which itself are big economies. So what do you experts suggest to encash this pandemic as a turning point in Pakistani economy? So whichever one of you wants to go.
Yunus, please go ahead.
This is a continuation of what I said in the answer to the previous question, that there is a lot of opportunity for a country like Pakistan, which is still largely dependent for its demand on imports. So a lot of value addition prospects are available in the country. The only thing is that very rightly said that we don't have a policy consistency. But right now we don't have a policy. So first we should have a policy rather than having a consistency. So policy and then the consistency of policy, we badly need that. We need to be very clear that there are certain very high sounding economic cliche that, okay, there should be globalization, there should be no protection, there should be free markets and things like that. But in a country like Pakistan, who is yet to establish some industrial base, protectionism cannot be avoided. It is not a good thing, but and perpetual protection or perpetual infancy of industries, it is also not good for the economy, like we have seen in the auto sector. Sorry if somebody is here from the auto sector. But we have to have a sort of time limit to such a protection. But see, if you don't have any investment in refining or petrochemicals or engineering or such areas, there's a lot of potential to do that. And I think we can find such areas, and absolutely right. Every challenge or any crisis, disaster gives us an opportunity to rethink our policies.
I would add to what Yunus Daga Saab said, agree with him, and going forward. For example, if you look at Bangladesh, if you look at India and other countries, the existing industries took advantage of this pandemic and, started launching new products. For example, our textile could use that platform to launch, the mask, sanitary things, and many other PPEs. The global things, like for example, Turkey has really went into these things and supplying to the market, supplying to the global market. But somehow, as Daga Saab mentioned, we don't have a policy. So what to talk about consistency? If we had industrial policy in place, I think our industry would have taken the advantage of this pandemic and supplied to the global world, the product which actually China, India, Bangladesh, even Turkey, these countries are supplying to the global world. So there's always opportunity in these crises. And I think many companies have taken the opportunities. Many are yet to take the opportunity of these crisis times.
Thank you, Harun. Thank you, Yunus. I would rather post the next question. Miss Annie Shahid must be thinking कि किसी ने सुना ही नहीं. So let me just read from one comment जो chat में आया था कि Mr. Shahid Bakar has said that thank you, Miss Annie, good points for academia. I follow same in my institute regards. So mashallah, good compliments. I have a question for you. It says that we have seen that most of the schools are giving homeworks in addition to online classes, which is very difficult at the moment. And if the students are unable to submit that homework due to non-support of network, they are penalizing the students, which is very harsh. Why do schools and or teachers do not understand that in any house there are more than one child, and how does the school expect everyone to have electronic gadgets with them?
Okay, so
You
that's
want
a
to
really
go over
good
the question
question.
again?
So to work around it, yes, that's a good question. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So now to work around that is we have a combination of Zoom classes and the Google Classroom. The Google Classroom enables for assignments to be put up, and we have realistic deadlines. We do understand, like I said before, that it's not just about academics right now. It's about keeping our parents and students sane and happy and catering to their emotional and psychological needs also. So we don't penalize our students, and there are no short deadlines. However, the process of independent learning needs to go on. And the Google Classroom enables them to submit their assignments in realistic timelines, understanding that there may be 3 or 4 children in a family and there may be only one device. So all of that is in place.
The next.
I may be able to add to what Ms. Shehzad said. I'd like to add something if I'm allowed.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, what's happening these days is that if you, like you said, that there are 3 or 4 children in a house. I've seen a lot of schools, they've been asking the children, like my children were being asked to have 2 gadgets at one time, one showing their face while they are doing their homework, and one to be put at the back where if there are online exams are being going on, so they're not cheating. The teachers should see that they're not cheating or doing anything fishy. The challenge is that the classes of all the children are mostly at the same time, 9 to 12 or 9 to 1 or 9 to 2. And they are, all these schools expect us to have everything ready with the everything like we should have a 20 MB network available with us all the time. We should have the connectivity available with us at all times. There should be no power outages. And if the power goes out, your student or if the child is asked to, he is not asked to come back again if their exam is going on. So, how this is going to work, it is mind boggling for me. My wife is getting crazy day by day because everything is being turned on to the students to learn from the online classes, and then they expect the parents to put in a lot of time which previously all the teachers were putting in, because teachers were previously giving individual times for the students as well. But since the Zoom and the online medium, the teachers are not giving that much of a time to individual child's need, and yet they expect all the parents to know everything and help the children out. So I don't you think that this is going to go not go very far,
Yeah.
because बहुत सारे problems create होना शुरू हो जाएंगे कुछ अरसे के बाद. Please, I like to have your
so let
comment.
me address that. First of all, and I'm an older parent, so as a parent, as an academic also, let me advise parents to let their children engage in independent learning. Please do not be around your children when they are in the online classes. That is what I mentioned in the beginning. That's the biggest challenge, because now school and home is one. So the parents are privy to everything and anything that goes on. And sadly, for some odd reason, parents really do not have a lot of faith in teachers. So that's the first piece of advice. Let your children be in those classes as they were in their classes in school. Please take a step back. Secondly, I don't know which school requires 2 devices to be there. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Thirdly, for exams and quizzes, there's software and that's the kind of capacity building that our teachers are engaged in right now. So they're very robust. There are robust softwares around where you don't have to have 2 devices and 2 gadgets there at the time of assessment and so on and so forth. And lastly, yes, power outages and Wi-Fi frequencies and all. For that, there's the Google Classroom, where the session that was going on in real time is then also the succinct points of the session are then posted on the Google Classroom for children to access at any convenient time. And please remember, let your children be independent. Please take a step back and do not interfere in what's going on.
Okay, thank you. Now I have a question for all the three speakers, basically. The question is asking, don't you think today's world really belongs to the millennials and the Z generation? What can we do to identify their wants and respond accordingly? So I would say, each one of you can take it one at a time.
So could I just start with a very short answer? It's not about the millennials and Generation Z. It's not about Generation C now, C for Corona. So there's another generation in the brewing. And how I define the problem or the solution is that we are not digital natives. So the current generation are the natives and we are the migrants. So the migrants have to change for the natives. The natives don't change for the migrants. So that's my 2 bits on it. So we have to modify and redefine our lives.
Arun, Yunus, would you like to comment on this?
Oh, I think Annie has covered quite well.
Yunus, any comments?
I totally second Annie, and it was very well covered.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is also towards all the three speakers. One or all three of you can answer. How to adopt, unlearn, learn, and relearn mechanisms during and post-COVID to improve human product quality and boost exports. Visionary suggestions, please, as per domain, Pakistan, ground realities. Everybody's excited to answer that, I guess.
I think exports, Harun Saab's area.
Yunus Saab mentioned about policies. Unfortunately, we are hampered by the government policy not to export, or we don't get any facilitation. So there's a huge world out there. I would say we need to keep looking at the export in the global markets. We can look at our neighbors. Look at Bangladesh, look at India, how they are supplying to the global world. Look at Turkey. We can learn a lot of things from Turkey. It's just the scale that we need to come in and start building up our exports. I've been hearing from Yunus Dhaga Saab and from Tariq Ikram Saab about exports, but unfortunately, both of them have stepped out of the government for reasons we know. So we as business houses have to continuously push ourselves. And I'll just recall a quote from Ronald Reagan, and I was just reading a few things. So I just quoted that government is not the solution to our problems. Actually, the government is the problem. So looking at what the global, the world and the leaders are saying, we have to push ourselves to look out at the export markets. There's real world out there. What unlearned, as Ms. Aini mentioned about the Generation C, I see a lot of the natives adopting the new technology. So don't undermine the natives or the people who are born in 60s or born in 50s. They are as good as adopting the technology as the Generation C or Generation Z would be. Yes, there is a difference. There is understanding difference. And even I find that, like, my 2 children who are just 5 years apart, they have a different understanding of the technology, and each of them can beat each other at any technology. So there's a host of the things were out there. Everybody have their own niche to understand where technology is taking them. So there's so much to learn and unlearn in this post-pandemic or the COVID-19. Now I would probably end this. This COVID-19 has been so confused that people have started calling this as confused 19 instead of COVID-19. Because every day there is new information coming in. And I was actually reading this morning that they've actually come out with a strain, the coronavirus strain, which is a new strain. And now people are talking, how do you make a vaccine? Because every strain is a different strain. So here we are in the new global or the new normal world. The things are changing every minute and every second.
Ms. Annie, anything from you?
Yeah, so the question was specifically around the idea of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And this is Alvin Toffler's quote, where he says that the uneducated of today are not people who cannot read and write. It's people who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And for that, we need to let go of our egos, whether it's business, whether it's economics, whether it's education, whether it's world leaders, any leader. I think that's the basis of success in life. First of all, you have to be a lifelong learner. You have to be willing to learn from one another. And then you have to be willing to give up on what you truly believe in at times, because it's the world around is changing so fast, and learn to listen to other people's perspectives. So that's the mantra in our school, that we learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Yeah, that's something which you can
In your
teach.
school.
That's something which you
In
should
our
teach
school.
the next generation, which is under your care. And vaccine, I mean, Harun, the new vaccine, the more the vaccine, the good the pharmaceutical business. So, I mean, I promised for 60 minutes, but we had some flexibility. So I'm going to put up the last question. There have been quite a few questions from the participants. My apologies if I was not able to take all of your questions, because in the interest of time, we had to manage time. Already we're going above. So this last question, I would just take up this one. It says, it is directed to Mr. Yunus Daga. It says, sir, agreed there are 4 areas to boost economy, but looking at worst track history of government policies, only hope is left with exports. What you suggest to improve skill set, product quality and competence during and post COVID-19? Do you think devaluation of PKR single-handedly would land us huge export orders? Unfortunately, Finance Ministry and government always has presented devaluation as export catalyst. Thank you in advance, and it's up to you, Yunus.
So I totally agree that devaluation is not the only answer to it. The only reason devaluation was being supported last couple of years was because it was said that our rupee is overvalued. So that hurts exports. That was only to that extent. But if somebody thinks that devaluation itself would boost our exports, that was wrong, because 60% of our imports are imported. So that directly the devaluation and the all over the custom duties and other things goes into the cost of production. So the idea or the devaluation being the only answer to increase exports was always flawed. And what we need is increase in our productivity. This is the worst areas of our performance, that we as an industry, wherever we are finding competition difficult. For example, Bangladesh, they import yarn and fabric from us and then they beat us out in competition. Also because of their access as a LDC, but also because we have not been able to compete in terms of our productivity of our labor, and also because of some issues with our energy prices. So energy cost as well as our productivity of labor, these have been the 2 points that have dragged our exports down. And I totally agree that devaluation, and we now know that after 40% almost of our devaluation, we are not anywhere in increasing our exports. There was some time when some of the orders shifted to us from China, especially when there was China-US trade war going. So that these are areas of our exports which we can still tap on, this trade war between US and China, but only banking on such trade wars or such outlying opportunities, as very rightly pointed out by Mr. Qasim, that we have a lot of potential still waiting in our wings to explore. For example, Africa. Africa is a growing economy, and somehow our exporters have not been able to tap it. We tried to put a 2% extra rebate, or say for those who export to Africa, but still not much has been done. It is being very recklessly captured. This big growing economy of Africa is being captured by China and India. These 2 countries are totally capturing that market. And so these are many areas where we can work. And but now, our post-COVID, I think that world is going away, moving away from globalization. We have to look inwards and capture our own market first, which has been captured by our importers, imported goods, I would say.
Thank you, Yunus. I couldn't agree more with you than that devaluation has never worked, because I've seen people, whenever you devalue, immediately you get from your buyers, you get a message, a phone call, or
Yes.
emails just to reduce your prices. So, I mean, there are still questions left. My apologies to all those people whose questions I couldn't take up because of in the interest of time. We have to close this session now. And I must say, I mean, thank you to all the three speakers. You guys have really worked hard within the short time we gave to you. My apologies that I have been after you guys very much on the timelines and for the event as well, asking for your presentations, having meetings with you and everything. So you guys, all of three of you have done a wonderful job. Thanks. And unfortunately, I mean, I won't let everybody to clap here because of बहुत शोर हो जाएगा. Yeah, that is the right way. So, and thanks to all the participants who have been patient, who have been giving their inputs, raising the questions, and it has been a very good experience. We learned a lot from our speakers. There were interesting questions, few of which I could pick up and say that. And I would say it was, I mean, from my perspective, I have to, mujhe taarif karna zaruri hai. So it was a good event, alhamdulillah. We need your feedbacks. You can give the feedback at hps.alumniassociation@gmail.com, hps.alumniassociation@gmail.com. If you're a Habibian, if you have not become a member, please go to the website www.habibianalumni.org, fill out the form and become a member. I request you all to look for the next event. We plan to do more events. And just before I close, I mean, Mr. Saeed Allahwala would like to say a few words. So it's over to you, Saeed Bhai. Saeed Bhai, you need to unmute.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I want to thank once again Yunus Daga, Arun Qasim, and Shazad for making it a lovely evening for all of us here in Pakistan. But I see a lot of American friends have also joined. So for them this morning, Adil Bhai, for you also, thank you very much for being a very good moderator, and Harun Bhai for sponsoring this program. I wanted to say one thing. We have like about 16,000 Habibians, living Habibians spread out all over the world. And during this session, I heard speaking about Made in Pakistan. And this Made in Pakistan is something which I just wanted to touch upon, that we are working on to make Habibian alumni as an advocacy platform to come out and play a role in the policy making in this country. So Made in Pakistan is probably going to be our first subject. We would like to take and bring on board a large number of Habibians which are there. So Yunus Bhai, I want to thank you because this point raised here and touched and talked in detail by you. But I think you would probably be a focal person to have this as a slogan for the Habibians and to take it forward as an advocacy and then bringing it in the country for a policy making. Made in Pakistan. I think alumni will play a pivotal role in this. Thank you very much once again, Fazil Bhai, for giving me this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhai Said, for your kind words. And once again, thanks to the sponsors, Platinum Premium sponsor, Hilton Pharma and Edco Laboratories, Platinum sponsor, MCOM, speakers, and the participants. Thank you. And now we close the session. Bye. Bye to everybody. जी सर, थैंक यू. आप लोग का शुक्रिया. आप लोगों ने कोऑपरेट किया मेरे साथ, किसी ने बीच में बोला नहीं.
थैंक यू. आप चाहे तो मैं काट दें आप.
तो ठीक है सर. अब now we plan for the next one. अगर करना है तो the topics are with you all. तो अगर करना चाहते हैं तो कुछ
There are still 40 participants on the floor. So I don't know whether we want to discuss it right now or not.